Hi, we are making apple crisp today, one of our favorites.
And our dad's favorite dessert,
Absolutely favorite of all time.
Yep.
We'll start with the apples, like we do in the restaurants, so it's efficient. So you want to go through and peel all the apples first.
This is a great tip. Compost?
All the apples.
Chickens love these.
And then you're going to go through each apple. You're going to cut it off the core.
You end up with a square core, right?
Square core at the end. That's compost.
You get nice even slices when you do it like this too. If they're not all the same size, it's not that big a deal. Right?
Yeah, some are thinner, they'll cook down a little more than the others.
So you want to talk about why these look the way they do?
So the apples that I have in there already have been what we call macerating for a little while. So I put sugar in there and a little lemon juice and a tiny pinch of salt, and you let it sit with the apples. We want to let this sit for 20 to 30 minutes, and what happens is obviously the apples are going to turn brown, but they also produce a juice down there at the bottom. That's juice coming off of the apples. So the apples are going to kind of wilt and sit down a little bit. It's going to make them easier to cook, and then we have all this
sugary goodness.
Yes. So we're going to let that sit, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to make the topping.
So we've got some flour, brown sugar. This is dark brown sugar, but you can use light for sure. I love the color of this. Nuts, Gail, right? What kind of nuts?
We're going to use walnuts for apple crisp, and I'm just going to pulse this a few times. I don't want to break them up too much because they're going to break up when I add the other ingredients. The nuts are ready to go. Let's add the rest of the dry ingredients.
Flour.
Got flour.
Okay, you want to grab the brown sugar? I'll hand you those other things.
Got brown sugar here.
Brown sugar, sugar,
A little bit of white sugar.
cinnamon, great stuff.
Cinnamon.
Salt.
Salt. Don't forget the salt.
About a half a teaspoon each of those. We actually are doubling this recipe, and we'll tell you about that in a second. Let's get this on.
So now we're going to go. A few seconds there. I'm going to take a peek at it.
Okay, we forgot to get one more thing.
Yeah, we do.
The most important part of this recipe,
So now,
in addition to the apples. Yep.
if you look in here, the nuts are about 1/4 inch. If they're too big, they might burn in the oven. So we want to make sure that they're not powder,
Right.
but small enough.
Yep.
What we're doing here is we're doing this recipe 2 times, because one thing that I like to do when I'm making crisp topping is I like to make a lot of it and put it in the freezer. And then you have a really easy dessert that comes together really quickly at the ready with whatever fruit you have on hand.
And you could put this topping on the apples frozen, right?
Sure.
So it's not like you want to make a quick dessert, you don't have to wait for it to thaw out. Okay? So here's our second stick of butter. Good to go.
Alrighty. Let us process again.
In fact, that's what we did today. We took a Ziploc bag. We're going to take half of this and put it in the Ziploc, throw it in the freezer. Ready to go when we need it.
I'm going to dump it out into this bowl to finish the mixing. The crisp is looking good. When I squeeze it, it comes together in some nice little clumps, but it's not one big mass in the bowl, and there's no sandy bits at the bottom. Everything has been fully incorporated. So this topping is ready to go.
So good.
Now, let's pour the apples into the dish.
Don't worry, they get a little brown sometimes because they've been sitting. They're going to cook in the oven and get brown anyway.
I never worry about
People
brown.
freak out about brown apples. There's nothing wrong with them. I'm going to take half of this and just handful it in my Ziploc and throw it in my freezer for another day. And then Gail's going to take the other half and top it on there. So don't worry about being perfect.
Just kind of crumble it lightly with your fingers, getting that nice texture on top.
Look at that. This is like potato chips. Like, you just want to eat it. It's so good.
Raw flour.
Which we've never done. Which we've never done.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Delicious. Your dish should be pretty full because these apples, as they cook, they're going to sit down. And I'm going to show you what that looks like.
Just like when you make a pie, it's huge, and when you take it out, it's sunk, right?
Okay,
Perfect.
let's put it in the oven.
All right.
Okay. So what we are looking for, the perfectly baked apple crisp, is we want to first of all see the juice bubbling all around the edges, not just in one or two spots.
Yeah.
It's really bubbling
All the way
all
around.
around. The topping is nice and brown.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of getting your topping brown. If it's too blonde, it has an underbaked taste, and the brown color develops the flavors in the nuts and in the flour and the sugar.
Gives it that crunchiness too.
And then if you also look, you see the juices are bubbling, and the whole thing has sat down in the pan really nicely. So this one's ready. It's ready to eat. Okay. So our crisp has been cooling for a little while. It's stopped bubbling. Sometimes they bubble for quite a while and you don't want to eat them then. They'll be too hot.
Hard not to, but yeah.
So this is really hot. It's going to stay that way for a while, and I am going to take a nice big spoonful to taste. Okay. See how soft when I put my spoon in there, I didn't have any hard apples crunching. The spoon just went right in there. No problem.
You don't want them applesauce either, but just a little bit of crunch there. Yeah.
Turn that. So that's what it looks like inside.
Yep.
And then you can serve this with a lot of different things. What I have here is a little picture of just cold whipping cream that you would normally get at the store and whip up. And we're just gonna...
Just plain. Our dad used to just take whole milk out of the fridge. Do you remember him doing that? And just pouring it on there and eating it like that. I thought it was so weird, but now it's really good.
Just like that. Nice cold cream with the apple crisp. Don't rush the crisp. Let it take its time. Let it sit down in the pan, bubble all around, and get
smell it.
nice and brown.